Hey, this is Jen Sullivan, your favorite program mentor from WGU. I'm really happy that you could be here with me tonight to go through our first term planning call. I'm sorry we can't do it live. I'm hoping this is going to be a fantastic alternative for those of you guys who are really busy and our schedules just aren't aligning. So I want to make sure you get what you need, you feel settled, you feel ready. And so we're going to go through some things today, including the portal, some classes, going to talk about your next steps, and just make sure you're ready to rock and roll on the first. So I think you're going to have to bear with me a little bit because I got to share my screen here, and this is the first time I'm doing this, so I'm hoping I'm getting this right. So hang tight here. I'm gonna get you all set up here. So hoping you can see what I see right now, which is your degree plan. When you get into your degree plan, you're gonna access it through the portal like you would at any other occasion. You're not gonna be using these two tabs as much anymore, and there's an orientation tab that you might be seeing as well, and you won't be using that now that your orientation is taken care of. So you will get into all your courses through the degree plan by clicking on the degree plan tab. When you pull that up, this is the kind of information you're gonna see. I've already asked you to take a tour of the degree plan, and if you have not done that, try to get that taken care of. It will give you a screen-by-screen shot of exactly what you need to see and how you need to do things in this system. If you come out to the top here, you're going to see basically what the D-flat plan is. As you complete terms, it's going to show you what your completed terms are, but for now, it's going to list what your first term is, and it's going to have the dates of that term. And in addition to that information, it's going to show you the first 3 classes that you have in the term, and it might be in varying degrees of order depending on if you're a part of a pilot or not. In this case, this student was a part of a pilot, and so she has the managing human capital first. Some of you may actually see the managing orgs and leading people class first. So I'm going to go through all these so you have a very good familiarity with the classes and where we go from there. So from orientation, you probably already learned that the numbers here on the side denote the number of CUs. So in your first term, you will have 9 CUs that are a part of this system for the term. And P's and O's stand for performance-based objectives or objective assessment. Performance are all the P's: projects, papers, presentations, things like that. Anything that has an O is going to be a computerized test that's proctored through our system or through a third-party proctor. Before we actually get going with your particular situation, I will set the dates that correspond to the goal that you have set in terms of a timeline to get done with the system, that particular term. So if you're on a 6-month pacing model, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, I'm going to try to put in some ballpark dates that correspond to that so you at least have something to shoot for. I've had people ask in the past, what happens if I don't finish something by this date? Nothing. What happens if I finish sooner than this date? Nothing. Basically, the dates that you really need to be worried about are that you have to finish all 3 of these classes by the end date that's listed up here for your particular term. So that's the biggie. How you get that done is up to you. Now, if you finish these 3 classes and you have time left in your term and you have at least a month left, because that's the threshold of when we won't accelerate anything anymore. If you call me and say, hey, or email me and say, hey, I finished my first 3 classes, I would like to move the next class in line. Okay, I'm going to basically move it. I'm going to set a new date. I'm going to call it a new degree plan up here. And the only thing you need to do is come in here and click on that plan, which will show the new class up in the current term. You hit the little button here, which is going to be a box where you put a check mark, and you hit the enroll button, and you're good to go. So for today's purposes, because we're going through and we're talking through the degree plan itself, you know, you see that this person has all of their stuff locked, meaning that they have already done the admissions and the enrollment process. So you may not see that. You may see a series of dots. And it's going to show that way until the first day of the term. And those dots are going to then change to boxes. And you're going to need to put that check mark in the box, and then there's going to be a button that pops up, typically up top, and you're going to hit the button that says enroll, and then you're going to be good to go. So taking a look at this particular situation here, I want to make sure before we go into the actual courses and talk about those that you don't have any concerns related to anything in our success centers. or our student support. We have a wealth of resources here that are going to be fantastic for you to keep rocking and rolling and making sure you're set to go for the term and you're successful once you're here. If you hover over or click on the Success Centers tab, I'm going to click on that because I've already pulled up some tabs in advance. If you click on that, you're going to see all of these options that are available to you. Now, depending on which class you start with, if you start with the Human Capital course, the C202, you're actually going to have your first objective assessment, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking to you about some of the resources for that. If you're somebody who's starting with the C200 class, which is the Managing Orgs and Leading People class, you're probably going to spend a little bit more time in some of these resources on the upfront end. The Writing Center has a host of options for you to get the kind of information you need. If you're a deep dive person, they've got live events, they've got articles. If you're just like, hey, I just have a quick question on how to do APA and those kinds of things, you can click on just the email link, or you can actually do the quick call-in line. So they've got a lot of really good resources that are available to you. Math Center is very similar in the sense of the kinds of things they offer, and it's related predominantly to math. They do still have some live events and cohorts that are specifically dedicated to students in the C213 class, our accounting class in the MBA program, and C214 financial management, specifically in terms of how to use your calculator. So if you're somebody who hasn't used a calculator in a very long time, or using that type of a calculator is brand new to you, then maybe consider attending some of these events where they walk you through in a live setting how to do those kinds of things. Again, if you start off in the C200 class, or if this is your second class, you'll probably be spending some more time in the library and all the resources that they have available to you. They have an Ask a Librarian. If you want to click there, they've got a chat line. They can teach you the ins and outs of making sure that you know how to utilize their databases in the most efficient way possible to get the results you want to get, so you're not spinning your wheels in 40,000 search results. So again, use the library, folks. They're your gold. If you look down into the other parts of the Success Centers, if you're struggling with work-life balance issues, or how do I even start a study plan, or time management is creeping up on me, or things like that. Those are normal things that people deal with when they're coming back to school. And in order to be successful, we have to ask for help sometimes. And so if you reach out to the Success Center, they've got a chat line that's available. If you wanted to talk to somebody in particular, if you're somebody who's more self-directed, you'll be able to see some resources there that are articles and, discussion boards and things like that. As a student here, you have access to our Career and Professional Development Center, networking resources, freshening up on your resume. How do I go about finding a job now that I have the degree? You can utilize this not just on the back end, but they've got some resources to help you with the job search, but also the job and career planning parts of things. Is this really the degree I want to be in, and where is it going to get me at the end of the day? So feel free to utilize those resources all along the way. WellConnect is really more kind of like an EAP at work, if you've got anything like that. It's got professional guidance for mental health and wellness. There's some financial resources in there if you're struggling with budgeting issues. If you've got some legal issues, there's some free legal aid. Those are all the types of resources that are available to WGU students that are not necessarily a part of our system. A lot of them are outside resources, but you have access to use them. So feel free to preview these when you guys have time to do so. So if you take a look specifically, that's what the Writing Center does look like. And like I said, you can attend events there. You can view additional learning resources. They have really cool discussion boards for frequently asked questions, blog posts that they have on, hey, if you're all struggling with APA citation or in-text citations or things like that, all of this kind of stuff is helpful to folks who utilize it. And again, if you want to schedule an appointment, you can get onto somebody's calendar. They can do a full review of your paper. A lot of times, if they're backed up, I tell people to kind of troll their resources. If you can troll here every day, sometimes people will drop same-day appointments and you can slide into one. But if they're too far out, I will send an email at the end of this particular session here, and it's going to have some resources available to you to bookmark on your system, including things like Grammarly.com, which is a free service to WGU students. students. And it will give you a full-on review of your paper. So if you can't get in for an appointment to our folks to walk you through some things that you traditionally do in your writing and get some support there, there's ways to keep making forward progress and doing so on a timeline that might work for you if our folks are backed up. Again, there's that quick helpline. They're really good at giving you like quick advice and guidance. Hey, I got a question about how do I cite this? Is it two spaces after a period, or those kinds of things? Quick resource kinds of things are what the helpline is for. So that stuff is available to you there. As I mentioned, the library, super great. Lots and lots of options available to you for databases that we have. If we don't have books, they can get them for you. As I mentioned earlier, if you click on the Ask Us link, which I'm not going to do because it thinks it's me and then it thinks it's you and then it's going to barf me out of the system and I don't want to lose you. But if you click onto this, you're going to see that they have like a chat box available that you can do like a quick one-on-one. And they've got additional resources if you want to actually set up a full appointment to walk through how to do something. But again, they have this how do I link, which tends to be helpful for people for some quick reference kinds of things. So now if I click back into the original degree plan section here, if you come over into the student support tab, there's going to be a lot of other things that you need to know to be a good student. It's all those other kinds of things, not related to actual, content support and things like that. So if you click into the student support tab, you're going to see that there's a lot of things here that students tend to need to manage. I'm going to jump down to the second one here. The IT service desk, if you click here, you're going to find the information for the IT folks. Typically, I tell you, put them in your phone on speed dial, only because if you're having problems getting into the portal, you're not going to be able to tell them, I'm having problems getting into the portal, right? So if you put them in your speed dial on your phone, you can make that call and get some assistance. IT is super fantastic. They do a great job reviewing a lot of resources with you, in terms of troubleshooting and problem solving, if it's things that they can fix pretty quickly. A lot of times I will tell you in our system, there's quirky things that happen, like you'll be able to log in one day and then the next day they'll tell you your username and password's wrong, and it's like, it's not true. So in order to fix some of those quirky kinds of things, we tell you guys to troubleshoot in a variety of ways before you call IT. One, I will always say clear your cache and cookies. I have to clear my cache and cookies every couple days. I don't know why that is in our system, but I do. And once I clear my cache and cookies and I get back out and I get back in, then it's fine. So that's step one. Step two would be try a different browser. The two that work best with our systems are Mozilla and Chrome. Both tend to work more consistently. Microsoft Edge and Safari are a little sketchy. And when I get into the courses, I'm going to show you some things. And typically, you can get in using those browsers, but there's going to be major columns of information missing, and you just don't even know it. And it looks like it's okay, but it then comes down to me saying things like, hey, make sure you pull the golden nugget in the course tips. And you'll say things like, I don't have a golden nugget and I don't have a course tips. And I'm like, everybody has a golden nugget in course tips. So sometimes it comes down to try a different browser. And there are things that our system, I still can't exactly figure out, but in our system, I have to use 3 different browsers to pull up different forms. So if it doesn't work in one, definitely try another. So if you've explored, I've cleared my cache and cookies and I've tried a different browser and you're still having technological issues, that's going to be where we say, hey, make sure you reach out to IT and get some support. The contact number is there. And again, I'm kind of a, hey, you do me. And they will do me. They will, if you tell them, hey, can you remote into my system and clean up anything and fix anything, they will do that. So just realize that those services are available. Now, depending on which class you start with, assessment services will be more important. If you're taking the first class as managing human capital, which is the C202 course, you'll utilize this particular link probably more quickly than if you start with the C200 managing orgs and leading people class. And so if you are in your first class that has the first objective assessment, that's where I say spend some time and energy using the assessment services tab, because there's going to be some really good resources on objective assessments. They can do a speed test for you to make sure your system can handle taking a test on our system. There's webcam setup, so if you've received your welcome kit from WGU, which you should have by now, and if not, it hopefully will be coming in the next week. But once you get it, if you need help setting up your webcam and getting ready, all of that information is going to be in the assessment services tab. The other thing that they offer there is there's proctoring policies, and there are specific requirements before you take your first test. And so if you don't read this and you schedule your first test and then you show up, you can have a very miserable testing experience if you are not prepared. So I always tell people, before you schedule the Managing Human Capital C202 exam, make sure that you have read the proctoring policies and you know what's coming, including the fact you may have to have your ID available, including the fact that your room better be spick and span spotless and it should have a door. And if it doesn't, they're going to have you walk around your house, and no joke, it has taken some of my students hours to do that process to find an available space that is suitable to the proctor. That information is all available in the proctor policies. If you had read it in advance, you would have known that. So I will tell people all the time, get into the assessment services tab and read the proctoring policies and be prepared for that particular experience. Now, if you say, I live in a studio and I don't really have a door, I've had that happen. There's information available in there for you to set up a third-party proctor situation. So all of the information you need on how to manage taking your first exam in our system is going to be available in the assessment services tab. Now, if you also have any issues with submitting your performance assessments, which would be your first written papers if you're in the C200 class, then you're also going to want to reach out to assessment services. There's a section for performance assessments that's in there. And so if you are having concerns about your evaluation, or you're having concerns about the originality checker and what that means and how do I navigate that, there's going to be resources and links available to help you through that process. So spend some time in the assessment services tab. One of the other things that folks tend to find that's helpful at the beginning stages especially is coming down into financial services. There are times that our financial services will post information in your portal here in the financial services tab, and they expect you to go in and finish your process by going in there and doing the things that they've asked you to do. There's not always going to be emails sent. Sometimes there are, but you can't rely on that. So if you want to know the status of your financial aid situation, if you want to know the status of your tuition and billing situation, this is where you're going to find that information. And again, they've got contact information to call them and get a once-over if you've got concerns or questions about how your particular situation is. There's some other stuff here that's available in student life, and contacting WGU, and I would say, hey, if you are interested in any of that stuff, spend a little bit of time there. If you are someone who is in need of accommodation services for any of your coursework, you can put in your accommodation request here. And let's say you get to a point in time where you are needing to take a break. Sometimes that happens where you're like, information overload, brain overload, life overload. I've got this going on at work and I just really can't manage school on top of it. You can take anywhere from a 1, 2, 3 month break in between terms. As long as you've remained in successful good standing in our system, you can apply for that, and you would do that through the term break request process. As long as you do that, within a week or two of your first, second, whatever term ending, then they'll get you set up. You do an exit interview. It doesn't take a real long time. It's like 10 minutes where they walk you through. And in that exit interview, it's really more about what it is you need to do to get re-enrolled when you come back from your break, and all the quirky things that happen, like the fact that you lose your degree plan and access to the courses and all that kind of stuff while you're gone. They'll walk you through all that and make sure you're set up and good to go. So if you have problems with your success kit, so if you did not get your webcam or your whiteboard, or there's actual issues with it, then you're going to want to contact this particular link in here and reach out to those folks for some assistance. The big thing in the student support tab that I really find to be helpful, and I'm not going to click on it because, like I said, it sometimes thinks it's me and then you, and then it just barfs us out. I don't want that to happen on this. But if you click into the student services tab, there's a few things here that are going to be really helpful to you. One, this is where you get all of the resources you need from the records department. So if you need validation of enrollment for employer tuition reimbursement, or I'm getting a new job and they need to validate that I'm a student here, those kinds of records related things are all going to be in the student services tab. The other big thing in there, and I have students, you can click into it and get to it from there, but you can also get to it from here, is the student handbook. And I tell you, bookmark this somewhere on your system so you can get back to it more easily than coming in here and remembering it's in there. But if you click on the student handbook, the big thing in there is that it's an interactive handbook, and everything that WGU has in our system, we put out in the student handbook for you and for me to see. So I have 100 students right now. If you are reaching out to me and you're having a hard time getting a hold of me, that's where I'm going to tell you to go and do some troubleshooting on your own. Type in a keyword search. It's going to pull up everything in the system that has that particular topic available. And if you call or you email me and you ask me a quirky question, I'm going to the student handbook and I'm typing it in and I'm looking. And so if you don't want to have to wait on me, because there's days that I'm going to be in back-to-back calls, and there's days that, you know, I have 30 calls pretty much back-to-back. And when that happens, I absolutely will get back to you, you know, within that day. I clean my email out before I leave for the day, and I will stay as long as it takes to do that so that everybody is responded to, other than the weekends. I don't work on the weekends. So if quirky things come up during that timeline, please feel free to reach out to the student handbook as a guide and a reference, and it'll get you pointed in the right direction on who you need to call or who you need to talk to about a particular situation you might be facing. So this would be the point in time I ask you if you have any questions, but you're not available to do that. So if you do, just make sure that you reach out. Email is always going to be the best way to reach me. I do, like I said, in between calls when I'm back to back and things are crazy, I will quick go to my email, and if I can answer, you know, somebody or two, I'll do that in between calls and stuff. So you're just more apt to get the best service from me by email. So moving forward, we're going to talk through the courses themselves now. So if you remember when we first got in here, you will always get to your courses now through your degree plan. You will click on the degree plan and you will click on the actual name of the course that you're involved in. So in this particular case, there we go. If you click on C202, the Managing Human Capital course, you're going to have this come up. Now, all of the courses in our system are oriented the same way. They have, you know, everything on the left-hand side here is going to be related to sort of the competencies and sort of a traditional syllabus. There's a welcome video, all of those kinds of information that you need to jumpstart to be, you know, a student in that particular course. Now, this is where things are slightly different in this class than any of the others, and you will see that when we get into those. But typically in the other courses, you're going to see two tabs. You're going to see the course material tab, and you're going to see the assessments tab. And so in order to get to the assessments and know what's being expected of you and to schedule or see that information, it's all going to be there. In order to upload your performance-based tasks, it's all going to be there in this particular tab. In this course, because there's only one objective assessment that's being required, they sort of embedded it in this middle section so you don't have the tab system like in every other course. But again, the middle section has the course material by clicking here, which will take you to your outside textbook. You will have to log in with your WGU email and log in, and that should get you where you need to be. But then the other thing in this course is these are where the assessments are. Now, every course, you're going to have the ability to take a pre-assessment. You can take the pre-assessment up to 3 times. A lot of people will take it at least once during their experience to gauge where they're at, to direct their studies, to figure out what do I need to do. And then moving forward, they might take it a second time or third time toward the end of their, you know, experience before they schedule their objective exam, just to make sure, okay, what types of gains have I made? And is there any deficiencies in my learning that I need to know about before I schedule that exam? And it will help you pivot where you need to go. And so I'm not going to click into this because, like I said, sometimes if I click on things, it doesn't exactly work. But I want to point out to you that after you take an attempt, you can click on the coaching report. And the coaching report is going to list for you these competency areas, and it's going to tell you how you did in each of those competency areas. So you might see things like exemplary or competent or highly competent. Those are all really good notations. That means you're heading in the right direction. It might say approaching competency. which means, hey, you're on the right path, but there's still a gap between where you're at and where you really need to be. And then there might be some areas that are either sometimes the words not present are used or minimally competent. It means, boy, you have some work to do in that particular area. Don't schedule an exam until you're really approaching competency or competent in all those sections. So basically the coaching report, the cool thing about the coaching report is typically there's a print view button in this one that will actually pivot you back to the questions that were on the pre-assessment and the answers that you answered and the correct answers if you got it wrong. So a lot of people will use that to study from. The other cool thing in the coaching report is beyond just telling you your competency areas, if you click on the little sort of section, there's like a little arrow on the left-hand side of that. If you click on that, it's gonna tell you exactly the subsections that are in that area. And it's also going to pivot you back to the chapters that you need the most amount of work on. So if it says suggested study and you click on the review, yes, it will take you there. And then you kind of know where to get going to keep freshening up on your studies. But people will use this all 3 times. The first time it's available to you and open. The second and the third time you do have to request permission from me. A lot of times if I see you took the first one, I will try to go in and open it up for you so it's there for you and you're not waiting on me. But occasionally you have to request the button. You're just faster than I am. But if you do, I'll get to it as soon as I can get it open for you. When you are ready to schedule your exam, you're going to come down here and typically, you can't see it right now, but typically there is a button that's the Schedule Now button. And if you click on the Schedule Now button, in this case, the student has actually scheduled it, which is why we can't see the Schedule Now. But if you click on the Schedule Now button, it's going to take you out to the proctor situation. Now, you can schedule same-day appointments. A lot of times, I say it's nearly 24/7. There's a few holidays they're closed on, but really, you have the ability, if you wake up one morning, you're like, I'm ready to rock and roll, I want to take this test. You could do that same day. You can plan out, as you can see, this person's scheduled out at least 5 days in advance. So you could do that as well. So that's sort of what that particular section looks like. Every course on the right-hand side is going to have all the really good nuggets of information that the instructors have put out there that they feel will help you get through the course. So typically, the first spot I tell you to come to is always come into a course and look at the assessment section. Figure out exactly what you're being asked to do. Okay, this is one test. But if you get into the other classes, you're going to see there's 2 performance tasks. You want to know what it is am I being asked to do to demonstrate my competency to get through these 2 courses. Because if you just start diving into the material, you're going to see there's quizzes and study guides and flashcards and a whole host of other resources. But these textbook providers that we use service a lot of other colleges as well. So they're generic in the sense that they're going to give you everything in the kitchen sink. Now, I've had people say, but it says I have to do the quizzes in the chapters in order. No. The way that our system works, the whole point of competency-based is that you prove it and move it, right? If you know material, you should not spend time and energy and resources jacking around in those resources that aren't going to give you your best bang for your buck to get you out of class. At the end of the day, the only thing we evaluate on whether or not you're competent in a course is your ability to pass the assessments for that course. And in this case, it's an objective assessment. It's one test. In other cases, it might be 2 or 3 little papers or 1 paper or a presentation, So that's why I say go to the assessments first and figure out what you're being asked to do. Secondly, all of the really good, rich nuggets of information are going to be over here on the right-hand side. This is everything the instructors have created to help you get through the course. So pivot there next and explore those. And if there's webinars and you can attend them, attend them. The live events that we have like that are fantastic because they're you, the instructor, and 70 of your new best friends in the same room learning about the material together. And so when you hear other people ask questions, a lot of times that spurs your own thinking and your own understanding to say, hey, God, I hadn't thought of that, but that's a really good point. And so you learn from other people. And that's sort of the interactive experience of these courses. So utilize them if you can. Second, and most of the time, those are going to be in your course announcements section. So if you come to the course announcements and you click on the view all, you're going to see what they have available. In this particular course, they encourage you to have a conversation with the course instructor up front. So schedule that appointment, right? There's some additional resources here in this course. They want you to review their personalized study guide. Okay. If you want to schedule specifically with one instructor or the other, Both of their contact information is included there. So, you know, you will have, once you get enrolled on the first, you will actually see your course instructor. But until you do enroll on the first, we want you to get going in this class, right? So we tell you, get in here, take the pre-assessment right away. See what areas you're competent in and what areas you still need to freshen up in, and that will dictate where you go from a studying perspective. Then we tell you to reach out to your course instructor, but you're going to say, but I don't have somebody here. I don't have anybody assigned until the first. Right, you don't. But this is the general group instructor line. If you reach out to those folks, they will tell you exactly what you need to do. If you say, hey, I took the pre-assessment, I got a coaching report, I'd like to talk to somebody about a study plan. The instructors in this course in particular monitor this, and any one of them can respond. Or, as I said, if you click in here and you find out in the course announcements that both Patty and Tracy's contact information is listed, or any other instructor for that matter, right? You can either email them, call them, or you can click on their schedule link and just literally set an appointment on their calendar to talk for 15 minutes about your personal situation. So there's ways to continue to move forward even if you're not formally enrolled in the class yet. And that's what we recommend. The best thing to do is get that pre-assessment taken right away in this particular course, figure out your coaching report, reach out to the course instructor for that study plan, and then study what they have recommended you study. Because based on your particular results, you might already have a really strong background in HR, right? And so it's really silly for you to go waste your time and spin your wheels going through every single thing in the course resources. You may be somebody who doesn't have a lot of background, but you know what? Just by process of being in the work environment, there's things you know, right? Oh, I know some of those things. Well, we don't want you to have to spin your wheels doing everything. So we're always going to say, get that feedback from the instructor to dictate where you take this course. And that's how you get through courses faster. In this particular case, the average time people are in this course is about 3 weeks. And so if you use this time right now to take the pre-assessment, talk to the course instructor, get a study plan in place, and you start studying, you've already gauged yourself at least a week. You could be out of this class in 1 to 2 weeks. Boom, done. First class done, moving forward. And so that's how people make really good quick gains in our courses. And if you do that, by all means, that's how you get to accelerate faster at the end of the term and pull other courses up. So as you move forward in this, the next spot to look at, course tips. Not all instructors put their resources in the same spot. I wish they did, but you can either find them in course announcements or you're going to find them in course tips. Now, if you click on the resource index, and I'm not going to do that, like I said, it'll bounce me out. But if you click on the resource index here, you're going to see they've got a study guide in there. They've got some additional quizzes. They've got fast pass information. They've got know how to pass kinds of things. They've got recorded webinars. They really have a host of additional resources. This is where we say spend some time here. Figuring out what it is the instructors really think you need to know before you go back and pivot into any of the resources in the textbook. Course search, if you're looking for something in particular, you can always click on the course search. In course chatter, there's value in course chatter. I just sometimes think that course chatter is kind of like a Facebooky rabbit hole, that you have really good intentions. Oh, I'm coming in here and somebody's going to help answer this question. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, squirrel, and you're following threads. And like an hour later, you look up and you're like, oh my God, I just came in here for one question and I'm still jacking around in course chatter. So I'm always just like, go in there, be very disciplined, do not ask more than 2 questions in that system, and then get out. But it is moderated by instructors, so it's super helpful. And sometimes you just get that personalized student-to-student support that you sometimes need, like, hey, I'm struggling with this concept. Anybody find any other additional resources? Because sometimes they're going to tell you things that you need to know from a WGU perspective, but sometimes, specifically like in the accounting and finance class, students were finding YouTube videos out there that broke things down really easily, and they were sharing them with each other. So that kind of support is incredibly helpful. So I'm not saying don't use it. I'm just saying be very disciplined when you do, okay? So I hope you don't have any questions about how that particular course works, but like I said, if you click on the course material, that's how you get to your e-text and all the additional resources that are available in this particular course. So if you are starting in this one, get going on it right now. Second course I'm going to kind of go back here. Second course, Managing Orgs and Leading People course. If you click into that particular course, it's going to bring this information up right here. And as you can see, everything is oriented the same way. You're going to have all of this study plan kinds of information on the left-hand side, including that there's a topics and pacing guide. You can absolutely follow that, but if you're somebody who's looking to accelerate, following this will put you in the 2-year pathway. So be very careful about following that if you are somebody who wants to get done faster. You will have to expedite the topics and pacing guide here. But again, as we talked earlier, course material is always going to pre-populate in the middle section, and first spot you come into every class is going to be the assessments tab. Now, I can't get this information, it's not letting me, but if you click on the assessments tab, you're going to see it will say task 1 and task 2. And within task 1 and task 2, there will be information over here where you can click on view task details. And that's where it's going to tell you the instructions. It's going to give you the rubric on what you're being graded on. That's the spot you're going to actually start the submission process when you're ready to submit your task. It is a 2-step process. You click on the begin task submission and you upload your task. It's going to do an originality checker to make sure that you've met the threshold. As long as you are under 30%, okay, as long as that comes back 30% or lower, you are good to upload it. And as long as any one particular item has less than 10%, you're good. But it's a 2-step process. It does the originality checker, comes back. If it's okay, then you have to hit the submit button to send it to the evaluators. Sometimes I've had people upload it and do this, and they're like, it's taking forever to grade. And I said, well, go back in there and check, to see. And they said, I forgot to hit the submit button. That happens. But once you hit submit, it does take about 72 hours to get an evaluation back in our system. So be prepared for that it can take that long. And so while you're doing that, then we always say, move on to the second task and start working on that. Again, all of the rich nuggets of information are going to be here on the right-hand side. As you can see, this person is not enrolled in this class yet, so we do not have an actual course instructor assigned for this course, which means you use the general group instructor email in the meantime. If you come into course announcements, you're going to see in this particular course, they have a lot of really good live events for this one. They've got like an orientation one that's being done on March 3rd. They've got another one on March 5th that's, hey, you're starting task 2. Come in here and understand what you need to do for task 2, right? And they've got the focused learning hour, which is kind of like, hey, your Q&A kind of open mic session for you to kind of come in and ask some questions. Task 2, I'm starting on task 2. Here's some information about that. So if you take a look, you come in here and you're available, at, noon to 1 or 8 to 9 or whatever it is during your particular time frame. They've got the time zones listed. If that works for you, come and do that. You'll get a live experience with course instructors and other students, and it really is very invaluable to your experience and stuff. But you can find out, like I said, you can log in and live in and have that. The big things in this particular course, if you click on the course tips, you're going to find 2 things. I've asked students in the past, how have you passed, Managing Orgs and Leading People so quickly? How did you get through? Follow the golden nugget is what the feedback is. If you click on the golden nugget is the only spot in the entire course that has the approved leadership theories. Do not start writing on your paper until you have reviewed the golden nugget. Because if you come out here and you get in the class and you just start doing all the readings, top to bottom, one, you're going to spin your wheels and spend a lot of time doing a lot of things you don't need to do. But like I said, the best spot is to click on the view details in your assessments to figure out what you're being asked to do. And it's going to spell out exactly what the instructions are. Section A and Section B in that first paper, you can write on without having anything done in the learning resources, because it's an observation of your organization and a leader that you are familiar with in that organization. And it doesn't have to be the CEO. It can be a work group leader or somebody, your boss, or somebody you're familiar with. So essentially, the best way to do that, click on the golden nugget and get going on things, and make sure you pick a leadership theory that's on this list. Second spot, pain points video. This is created by the instructors as a do and a don't before you start getting going on your paper. So that tends to be incredibly helpful. Now, let's say you get down to, the section B and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to write a SWOT analysis and I don't want to go digging in here for it. I don't know how long. Okay, great. 4 minutes. Do you have 4 minutes? Watch the video on how to do a SWOT analysis, and 4 minutes later, you'll be able to write on that section. If you get into the second paper and you're like, oh, I have to write SMART goals. I haven't written a SMART goal. What does the T stand for? Well, there you go. 3-minute video, SMART goals. So they try to make all of these kinds of resources quick, you know, grab and go kinds of things that you need to kind of keep moving forward on your paper. So that's going to be the second course. The third course in the series, if you click on it, I'm going to get back here, is Management Communications. You click on that and it's going to take you to this particular thing. And as you can see, it is oriented the exact same way. Most of the courses are oriented this way. So again, I'm not going to be able to click on the Assessments tab, but if you click on the Assessments tab, you're going to see that there are 2 tasks in this class. The first task is going to be, it's going to be a video that you have to do with a PowerPoint presentation. And in this course, don't ask me why, I wish they'd just relabel it, but in this course, they try to actually start with task 2. If you start with task 2, it actually flows better into task 1 because task 2 is the written portion. You're going to write on a series of prompts. Couple professional emails. What would you write if you were, you know, putting a little blog post out there about your company? There's a persuasive letter in there. It's just a series of smaller prompts. Once you get that done, it tends to make that PowerPoint and presentation run a lot more smoothly. Everything you're going to need to know about in this course is in the course announcements and course tips section again. You're going to have the contact information for any one of the instructors until you're formally in the class. So again, you can get onto their calendars, you can email them, you can call them. All that information is available to you in the course announcements section. And then in the course tips, which is my favorite, in this particular course, you know, they're gonna, again, they started off with task 2 information before task 1, but they have task related videos and tip sheets. Look at those before you start writing on the prompts or you start working through the requirements. They have a series on how to do the Panopto and how to download the Panopto, which is a software you will use to actually upload your PowerPoint video presentation. That presentation, expect that you will be live on camera, you and your webcam. You're going to be giving a presentation just like this. They expect that there's going to be some ands and ums, so don't worry about being perfect and don't worry about having to cut and splice and do all this stuff so it's perfection. No big, you know, podiums and things like that. It's just kind of you giving it. But do expect that you're going to have to dress professionally and give it in a manner in which you would be giving information out to your virtual clients. So that's essentially the gist in this particular course. So I'm hoping you're feeling good about where you're at with this stuff. The real biggie here now, moving forward is, you know, where are your next steps? What do we do from here? Okay, now that we've had this first term planning call, I can go in and set your schedule because you're done with orientation. I will set your schedule today and get that figured out for you. And then what you need to do is, I'm going to send you this email. Please read it very carefully. There's a lot of really important information that you need to do before you get really formally enrolled in the course. First things first, on the first day of the month, you need to go in and accept your enrollment. That's, like I said, couple checks in a box, hit the enroll button, you're good to go. But what that will do is it will make sure you get the boxes that are available to you to upload the assignments or schedule tests, and it will also get your course instructors assigned to you. So that's a really important step. Needs to be done on the 1st, okay? That's how you get formally admitted. And if you aren't doing that, I'm going to make sure you are, because I will be sending you text messages and email messages until you do. So I'm always just like, just do it on the 1st, okay? There's some additional information I do want you to spend some time reviewing. I've left you with these 2 big policy items because they're new and they are important. The first biggie is the critical action policy. Within the first 45 days of the term, you need to have something major done, okay? In good faith, most classes, actually all 3 of those classes, the average time that people are in those classes to complete them is somewhere in the 2 to 4 week range. So if by day 45, which is a month and a half, and you haven't done SWAT, we don't want you in the system because it just means that this system isn't a good fit for your learning style. And in good faith, we don't want to keep taking your money and not be able to deliver on a promise to make and improve your life better. So we will, like I said, we're going to get you out of the classes at that point. It's going to show up as a drop on your transcript. But the big thing is if you want to stay here and you want to do well, then like I said, depending on which course it is that you're starting off with, those are traditionally done by this point in time. If you are struggling to get items done by that point and complete courses by that point, you might struggle in our system a little bit, and we don't want that. So if you're just off to a slow start and you want to stay enrolled, then by day 45 at the latest, you must have either submitted a task for evaluation. So if you're in that C200 class or the C204 class, it would be submitting one of those performance tasks. It doesn't have to be passed, but it does need to be submitted no later than day 45. You can also get to the same end by making sure you take the pre-assessment in the C202 class. That's one of the easier ways of establishing yourself in the class. It's one of the first things we tell you to do. We tell you to retake it once you've had a chance to study up. So that's an easy way of doing that. It's an hour of your time. Or if you're ready, you can take an objective assessment in the 202 class, the final exam, and that will count as well. But again, it doesn't mean you need to pass these things. It means you need to do them. And you would want to do them so you're not wasting your time and money, because if we withdraw you at this point in the process, 45 days in, it's still $1,000 of your money. Not worth it. So get out of the gate quickly. People who get out of the gate quickly and have good faith efforts to get moving do really well in our system. And that can be you. And so the other policy items are really about this academic activity and communication. Because we are an online college, you can't put your bum in a seat. And so that's usually how traditional colleges measure your attendance. And attendance is a direct correlation to your ability to get your financial aid and things like that taken care of. So how do we do that? Weekly phone calls. They are required. In the first term, you must keep your phone calls with me. If you cannot keep them and you know in advance that something's going on, send me an email update. We can call it a day for the week, and I'll try to call you on the next week. I have a Google form that I will send you a link to if you know in advance, hey, I can't take that call that week. You have to stay in communication compliance. But the expectation is we will talk weekly. The best way to get rid of me is to finish your first 3 classes. You finish your first 3 classes and demonstrate that you are competent and you are functioning in our system and you're an independent learner who can keep moving forward, we can go to a bi-weekly call cycle. So if that's not incentive to get out of the gate quick, I don't know what is. So work hard to make that OTP, which is our on-time progress, and then we can ease up in our flexibility. Tied to that communication requirement is also the academic activity expectation. Our system requires consistent progress in order to move forward and do well. All of our statistics say that. So our expectation is at least every 14 days, you need to be in communication with me doing this, our weekly phone calls, or at least doing this. And there's a whole host of things in there that count. Talking to your course instructor counts. Watching a live webinar or recorded video or things like that count. Taking a pretest, taking a final test, submitting an assignment, being in your e-text, doing your resources, being consistently engaged is how we demonstrate progress in our system. And those folks who do that are going to be more successful than those who don't. So this is being measured. With every click that you do, it's being measured. You need to be engaged at least every 14 days. And like I said, you need to be talking to me once a week. Those are the 2 biggies. So follow this, you'll be just fine. You want to get going in your first class? Here's some information to do that. In this particular case, I'm having people start off with the C202 course. There's some things you can do out of the gate to make yourself successful. Watch that video right away. Take the pre-assessment. Figure out where you need to go with that. Reach out to the course instructor. Have a conversation. Get a study plan in place. Then start studying. There's a lot of resources that are available to you, including FastPass cohorts and Know2Pass and quizzes and lots of good resources and nuggets and stuff. So get in, be active, do it quickly. 80% is sort of the threshold in this class where they think as long as you score 80% on the pre-assessment that you're going to be more prepared for the final objective assessment. So be shooting for that on the pre-assessment. And then the other thing is, I've been told from other students that the chapter quizzes are actually written in a more similar fashion to what you're going to see on the final exam. So make sure you're spending a little bit of time there because they're written in a more situationally applications-based kind of way. And folks have find that to be incredibly helpful. So anytime I get a nugget of information, I'm going to include it in here like, hey, you know, pay attention to this. That might help you get through faster and better and more successfully. So I will include resources today in our email to help you do that. I will also include today this snapshot of the pace you need to keep. I don't have one here right now, but I will. And it's going to be based on your particular situation, and it's going to say exactly what you need to do in order to get through. So every single due date of every single task or every single test and every single course. Put that into your calendar, follow that, and you will meet the timelines that you want to meet that are your own personal goals. And we will also set goals moving forward. So the phone calls that we're making, I'm always going to ask you these things. I'm going to ask you what progress you've made toward the goal. what is working and what is not working for you. And set a goal for next week. You know, what can I help you with? Those kinds of things. I'm always going to kind of get to the root of that. But because you don't have a frame of reference on where to start setting goals and what's appropriate and what's not, we give you a little jump start. So in this particular class, we tell you, go in and activate that course. Start looking at all the resources. Take the pre-assessment before the term starts. Get the coaching report, have the conversation with your course instructor so that you can get a plan in place by the time that we talk next week. That's sort of the biggie. And then I will leave you with a list of options that are going to work for us to schedule that first basically weekly call. So that call, you're going to have a 15-minute block of time that's yours. The average call in our system is 5 to 7 minutes long. So I'm not going to keep you for a long time, but that block of time is yours. And we will ask you, like I said, those same series of questions. So if you come prepared, we can get you on and off really quickly. But that time will be your time during the duration of your experience here. I am, like I said, I'm up to about 100 students, so I'm really tight on what I have available and options. And if you need some flexibility, like I said, week to week, we can make that work with a Google form here or there, or an email here or there. So we'll do what we can to be flexible for you. There's some additional resources of things that we talked about today, and please bookmark these in your calendar somewhere. These are some additional writing related things, not just our writing center, but Grammarly.com, Citation Machine, things like that will help you get a really quick jump start. So that's the gist of it. I really hope that you got the information that you need. I'm hoping you're going to have a great experience here. I'm hoping that you're going to love it as much as I do. And if you need anything, I'm always here to help. So if you need anything after I send this, please reach out. But I will expect that this big long haul is going to get you set up and ready to rock and roll and be successful here. So take care, and we'll talk soon. So see you on the flip side. Bye.